All right, in this video, we are going to go from the start to the finish of making the footstool. This will be a series of videos that you will be able to watch and review should you need some further guidance on how to make the footstool. If you look at this is the current footstool that many of you are working on. And the reason that we use this footstool and actually use this as our first project is because it uses almost every piece of equipment in the shop. If you look at it, we have to use the planer to get the thickness. We have to use the table saw to get the width. We use the radial arm saw to cut the length. We use drills to drill our dowel pins. We use band saws to cut our semicircle and our mortises. We use the planer to get this thickness here. So we use almost every tool in the shop in order to make this project. So let's begin. As we start to decide what we're going to do, the first thing we need to do is to select our lumber. To do that, we have to go back and pick a piece of lumber that is going to be adequate for the job that we are doing. If you look at this piece of lumber here, if you can see the grain structure in the wood, this is an extremely rough piece of lumber. So if I chose that piece of lumber for my product, and if you can see it's a very long and tall piece of wood, if I chose that piece of lumber for my product, I would have to clean plane that board. So what does it mean to clean plane? Well, some boards come into the shop and they are already planed. It depends on what we purchase when we send our material out. So the lumber yard sometimes brings it in and it's already planed. As in this board here, you can see that it doesn't have a rough grain structure. Whereas opposed to this board, it has a very rough grain structure. So if you get a board with a rough grain structure, the first thing you need to do is get it to a manageable, workable size for your part. And then you are going to plane it just to clean plane it. That doesn't mean you're taking it down to a finished thickness. It just means that you're going to clean the roughness off. So let's take this board here. If we use this board here, the first thing we're going to do, this one here is rough cut. As you can see, there are saw blade marks that come through here. So this board needs to be clean planed. So the first thing we do, we take and we measure this board. So we hook this on here, we bring it out, and for a footstool, you need two 33-inch pieces of material to glue together. So we'll mark it at 33 inches. Then we can take it over to the radial arm saw, which we're at, and we can cut that board to 33 inches, and then we need another board at 33 inches. So we roll our board down, we line it up with our blade, like so. We line our cut up. Then we're going to take and get that cut so that we can get it nice and straight. So we're going to go like this. We'll set you up over here. Like so. There we go. And we'll cut our first 33-inch cut. There's our first cut. We'll do the same thing to the second board. We're going to measure from here, 33 inches. Now, you can remember, I don't want to hold on to the small end of the board. So I marked this in two different areas. I marked it here and I marked it here. I want to turn this board around so I have something to hold on to. I take it like this and cut this one to 33. There we go. If it's less than 12 inches, it goes in the scrap barrel. If it's over 12 inches, it goes on the scrap shelf. The next thing we need to do, because this material is rough, is to take it to the planer. If you can see, this board has saw blade marks all through it from when it came from the sawmill. So we are going to clean plane it. So the first thing we need to do is figure out what thickness we want to set the planer to. So I take my tape measure, I put it here, and I realized that this board is 1 1/16 inch thick. So that's what I set my planer to. So we head back to the planer, and all we want to do is to get the saw blade marks off so that it gives you a nice straight edge. So we go like this here. We look over here. Right now, this planer is set to about 5/8 of an inch, and we need to set it to 1 1/16. So we take our hand wheel, we turn it counterclockwise, and that will drop this gauge until it gets to 1 1/16. So right there. Remember, if you stop your hand wheel, now that we have the planer set to 1 1/16, now what we're going to do is run those through, and all we're trying to do is clean plane it. So I have to turn the dust collector on, so you may have a hard time hearing me, but what we're going to do is we're going to plane one side, flip it over so that the ugly side is facing up, turn the hand wheel one time, plane it again, and hopefully between 2 and 3 passes, we should have the board clean planed. So we're going to go over here to the dust collector, which is over here. We're going to hit the start button. Make sure that your blast gate is open. That's over here, so make sure you open that up. We're going to start the planer. Okay, and as you can see, what that did is it took, and we still have a couple saw blade marks here. So we're going to do a half a turn. I think with a half a turn, we're going to be able to get it clean planed. So when you turn your hand wheel, you want to turn it in a clockwise direction. I turned it a half a turn. We're going to send the boards back through. Come to the front of the machine. We're going to take a look. The one board's good. This one here is clean planed. This one here still needs some. So we're going to take and do another half a turn. Make sure you pick your ugly side and face it up. So the ugly side of this board, as you can see, this one is clean planed. And if you turn it over, this is obviously the ugly side of the board. We're going to turn the hand wheel a half a turn. And we're going to stick the ugly side up on both boards. There's the ugly side of that board. There's the ugly side of this board. As you can see, the board that we just stuck through, that is clean planed throughout the entire surface. So now that board is done. And this board here, as you can see, this board here still has some rough edges to it, so we want to do another half a turn. Okay, but to keep them the same thickness, we're going to stick both boards through there so it makes the gluing easier later on. So we're right here at another half a turn. We take our ugly side, we stick it up. And as you can see, as it came out, that board is now clean planed on the front, on one side, as well as on the other, so that board is done. But we do need to stick this additional board through there so that they're the same thickness when we go to glue them. Now you can look at your gauge and find out where you are. Right now I'm at about right between 15/16 and 1 inch. If I wasn't clean planing and I was finish planing this, let me shut the dust collector off so you can hear me. If I was finish planing this, I would plane this down to 3/4 of an inch, but we don't want to do that because we're going to glue our boards together and we want to be able to stick them back through the planer after we glue them so that it takes care and makes that look like one board. So the next thing we do is we have to take it over to the joiner. So we're going to take our board, take both of them, we're going to set it up at the joiner. There we go. We're going to take our better edge of each board. So you're going to look down the board and figure out which is the better edge. This one here, because I have an imperfection right here, the better edge is this side. So I'm going to joint that edge, turn the joiner on. Hold it against the fence, keep your fingers back. As you can hear, it cut all the way until the end of the board, so that means I need to run it again. Once it makes contact and cuts the entire board, you're done joining. So that board's done. Put it aside. Now we do the next board. We do our better edge. So you look down it and see which one's better. This one, they're both pretty good, so you pick either side. As you can hear, it didn't make contact at this end or at this end, so we have to run it one more time. And now you have both boards joined. Now it's time to put them together. So you're going to go up to the front of the room. We're going to get our clamps and our glue and put the two together. So let me get us set up here so that you can see. There we go. Now, if you look at the boards, I know we've talked about grain direction, and it's important that when you choose your grain direction, that they are opposite when you glue them together. So if you look at this board, specifically here, you can see that the grain direction on this specific board, the grain is down on this board the way I'm holding it. Obviously, if I turn it the other way, now it's up. It's whatever way the mountain peak is facing. So there's your grain direction on that one. And if you look at the grain direction on this one here, you can tell that the grain direction is down on this one the way I'm holding it. So you mark it, down and down. Now what you want to do is dry clamp this, so you want to make sure this side is up because that's where the mountain is, so I go like this. And you want to make sure you put your jointed edges together. So that one's up, that means we got to put this one down so that they're opposite of one another. When you use your clamps, you put two of the same clamps on the bottom, and the third clamp goes on top, and it doesn't matter if it's the same brand. So we pull this here, we put this here, we pull these in, we pull this in. These first clamps should be about 2 inches from the outside edge of the board. You don't want to put it all the way because it'll squeeze your corners and crush them. So that one goes here. And this one goes out. The third clamp goes on top. Now these clamps are not that tight, they're just sitting there. These are still loose. Now what you want to do, you make sure you have one down, one up. You pinch your first two boards right at the seam. Snug your board. You take your second clamp. You always work from left to right or right to left. Don't start from the middle. The goal is to get these two pieces of material on the same plane. You want them to be flush with one another. So now we go like this here. We snug this one. We pick up until it's dead flush in the middle. And we snug that up. The third clamp, you do the same thing. You make sure that it's flush. If it's not flush, you want to pull up or down on that board. There we go. And snug your third clamp. This is called dry clamping. The reason you want to dry clamp is so that you have an opportunity to see if it goes together without glue. If it doesn't go together without glue, you got to go back to the joiner and joint whatever edge does not look like it's straight. So we're going to loosen this. We're going to loosen the middle clamp, put it aside. Loosen the third clamp and put it. Open these up just a little bit so we have room to work. You want to flip both boards up on edge. You want to get glue on both of these boards, about an 1/8 inch bead. So you're going to go like this. Oh, this is clogged a little bit. Go like this here. Let me get a different glue ball. There we go. That should do it. Got clogged a little bit over the weekend. There we we go. An 1/8 inch bead on this one and an 1/8 inch bead on this one. The one thing you want to do, it causes some cleanup troubles later. You want to make sure you grab a paper towel and grab a piece of paper towel that's about the same size as your boards. That's a little bit big. We'll go like this. We'll slide this underneath the clamps so that when the glue drips out, we don't have to clean it up later. We can just throw away the paper towel. All right. That goes there. We take our finger, we go down both boards to smear the glue out and make sure that the glue touches each surface area all the way across the surface area of the board. So don't miss any areas, get it on each piece. A lot of people hurry up and want to do it quick and slick, and they don't spread the glue out. Take the time, spread the glue out. The project will last much longer in your life. Make sure that you get it on all surface areas, like so. There we go. There we go. All right, this goes like this. This goes like this, and we do the same thing as when we went to dry clamp it. This glue can be wiped either underneath the table or you can go over to the sink. It'll dry under there. And then you take this here, you go like so. Tighten your first clamp. You want to squeeze in the seam just like you did when you dry clamped. Squeeze the seam, snug it, don't kill it. Same thing with the middle. Put it on. Snug it. Make sure that it's flush. Pull up on one if you need to. And snug your middle clamp up. And then last but not least, get your third clamp and pinch it at the end, or move one board up and down so that the two are flush, and snug your third clamp. Once you get it snug, you want to go back and feel in those three areas to make sure that it's okay. If it's okay, you can go back and put some force on these, okay? You can squeeze this on, squeeze this on. And that takes you from obtaining material to gluing material. You can't do anything from this point on until the next day. Glue takes 30 minutes in the clamps to actually dry, and it takes 24 hours to actually put it into a machine. What's the difference? Well, if you take wet glue and go to cut it on a machine, the glue is going to get on the blades and the knives and things like that and dull them. But the glue actually gets to a point where it doesn't need clamps in about a half an hour. So you want to make sure, because we need to use these clamps for other classes, that you put your name and your period on your board. That way there, if the next class needs to use those clamps towards the end of the time, if this has been glued for a half hour, we can take the clamps off and someone else can use them. So that takes you through obtaining to gluing, and we'll stop there.